Oh, shit. There we go. Good morning, Isabel. Oh, man. Stax, are you with me, buddy? Oh. It might help if I turn the microphone on. We're starting a franchise. We're trying to expand our international credibility. I swear. Every time you adjust Restream, like, it messes up the chat overlay. It's so annoying. So annoying.
Hello.
Oh my God, you are so loud.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's probably me.
I can move this back a little bit.
That is the loudest chair. I am just going to complain the entire time. Okay, a couple of things. Number one, oh, here we go. Oh, just stop that. Stop that right now. God, we're going to drive people away.
I don't know how to get a quieter chair.
Of course you don't. Of course you. Why would you? You don't know how to do anything that is like cooperative to me at all. You don't care.
Is that happening to everyone else where he's like cutting in and out of his audio?
Yes. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
For some reason, Restream like has auto gain control like
Ooh,
automatically enabled, so I just had to disable it.
that's obnoxious.
It is obnoxious. Wait, I'm obnoxious or it is?
You know,
Fair.
you're familiar.
Oh, you starting to like lower the neckline for some eye candy?
No, yeah, exactly. How's it going,
dude? You're tired, aren't you?
I am tired. I just been. I'm just tired. I don't. Here's the thing. I want something to complain about. No, I want something to complain about, and I'm like, what do I have to complain about? I haven't been doing that much.
You're like, life is just so perfect.
No, I'm just like, no. It's like I'm looking for like excuses for all the things I've been doing, and then I'm like, no, I was just up till like 2 a.m. playing board games. Like that was it. That was the entirety.
What are you doing? You're like a teenager, man. Like, what is up with this? My God, you're like 17 years old again, and like you're like in high school. Like, bro, let's get some like Mountain Dew, bro, and like play some board games, and maybe we'll get on the Xbox. You know,
I didn't play Xbox, but I did have Mountain Dew. So,
hey, what's up, Alex?
So jealous. You miss so much having those
about fun. No, listen, I'm a fun killer. It's so funny. So the group of people that I hang out with, it's like it's a pretty vast group of we're calling them friends. Okay, so I'll explain the concept to you. But anyway, friends are again people who voluntarily interact with you publicly without shame, repeatedly.
Is it like you and me? No. Oh, right. Because it's like
without shame.
Right.
Yeah.
And then every time I call you, it's like, hey, we're not fucking live. Get off of my phone number.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like how dare you? This is for emergencies only related to stream.
Right.
But a lot of them love board games and stuff like this and bowling.
Yeah.
So like we were at a bar last night, a bunch of us, and it was like this big co-ed group, and so there were couples there, and my girlfriend right now is in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like, the stag thing or whatever. There were a bunch of single guys there, and then there were couples, and a lot of them wanted to play. Like this bar has bowling in it. And they
I didn't realize how lame I sounded until bowling got mentioned. I was like, these guys sound awful.
No, listen, let me tell you something. You're right. We could have been playing Magic the Gathering or something like truly sophisticated, right? Yeah, exactly. All right. Just get back right in front of that. Okay. Block that.
It's a dope card. Okay.
Okay. Whatever you say.
It's one of the most well-designed, well-positioned card I've ever seen. It's so beautiful. And look at that art. Seth MacKinnon, we don't talk about his politics, but like, look how beautiful it is.
Mm-hmm. So they were like, okay, let's do bowling. And they're like, Josiah, do you want to bowl? I'm like, absolutely not. And they're like, yeah, somebody else was like, yeah, Josiah doesn't play games or like to have fun at all. I'm like, precisely. I really don't. They call me the fun killer because like every time like there's like a Halloween party or a costume party, because like a lot of them like to like host house parties, I will literally just go as myself. And
you're such a loser,
dude. I used to love Halloween and love dressing up and stuff like that, and now I'm just like, I have no appetite for it whatsoever.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Do you play games at all? What are your hobbies? What are your hobbies? What do you do? I'm just realizing now, like, you don't talk about your hobbies. And every time you're like, oh, I would love to stream, but I just like don't play games or know how to do anything other than talk about politics.
You're like, I know how to yell at Republicans and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum. So I work a full-time job still from home.
And I do too.
Well, I understand. I'm just giving you basically the breakdown of my time. So I work a full-time job Monday through Friday at home. And then during and afterwards, I'm researching like either political topics, political theory. I'm reading books. I used to love fiction, and I still do, but I can't tell you the last time I've read fiction. Because it's all been like, books about White House chiefs of staff and Ben Burgess's latest debate book and all this other thing, like an autobiography, or not an autobiography, a biography of Otto von Bismarck, German statesman from the 19th century, stuff like that. And then doing videos, recording 4 a day, editing them, rendering them, uploading them, doing the SEO. I go to the gym.
Can't relate.
I try to have a social life, like especially on the weekends. And just like started, like I have a new relationship now, so like making time for that. But she's been in Mexico for like a month visiting family, so like that's not been like a major component of time. So basically, dude,
you don't have
that's
hobbies.
it. Like for real. Like I go to the gym, I walk around, I listen to music, I try to like I still love Star Wars, I still love fiction, and you talk about games. So I just fired up after 2 months Jedi Fallen Order, or not Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Fallen Order.
Yeah.
And
you can do it.
I played it for 10 minutes. It's like I'm on the second or third planet. It's super laggy because I guess it's not optimized even for a pretty good PC like mine. And so I'm just like, oh, to hell with this. And I just logged out and I just veg out. Like in like the rare gaps of time, I like will fire up the West Wing or Ted Lasso or Buffy or something like. I don't know, dude. So maybe now that I'm saying that, your life might actually be more fulfilling than mine. I can't talk crap about you anymore.
True. Like I got together with my friends. I mean, I went to like one of my friends.
Wait, got together with your friends. Okay, so you were sitting by yourself then, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, I mean I went to a birthday party for my kid's daughter who just turned 1, which by the way,
your kid's daughter? You said your kid's daughter.
Sorry, my friend's daughter.
Okay.
My friend's daughter.
Your grandfather. Kid. He is actually, he looks very young, but Stax is actually 58. Okay.
Yes. Facts.
He wears it so well.
How lame is it that first-year-old birthday parties exist? What are you doing for the kid?
There's no object permanence or anything.
Yeah, 100%. And at the end, they were like, oh, here's a little cake and it'll get all over the face. But she didn't know how to like eat it. So they just like put it on her face like she like sort of like put it over and then took pictures of it. I'm like,
you're
this
30
is so
and you're
late.
basically in the same situation. Like you don't know how to eat food. You're like, and you're like just like painting yourself.
But here's the thing. I did that to myself, so at least I have that. Like no one put the food on me.
Okay, real talk. Like I will say as a like a gesture of solidarity. So how many nieces and nephews do you have? I have 13.
I have 3.
Okay, I have 13. My 13th niece was just born like 4 days ago. Okay.
How many siblings do you have?
4. 4 sisters. Wow. Yeah.
I have 6 siblings and I only have
You
3.
have 6 siblings and only 3 nieces and nephews?
Correct.
Oh my god.
I'm the second oldest, so like I have my youngest brother is still in high school.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. That's good. Then you do not want anytime soon more than the 3 you have.
Correct.
Fair enough. But sometimes I do feel like birthday parties for these toddlers are more like vanity projects, I feel like.
For sure.
You know? And I mean, I'll go, but it's like
so I have 2 siblings. One of them was really great about it. Like they're only having birthday party. Like they might like get together, like, oh, let's have a brownie to celebrate or something. But it's obviously not for the kid, and they don't try to pretend like it is. And I had a birthday party recently for my niece who's 6 years old, and it was great because she obviously wanted it, and she picked the theme. And she's like, I want an axolotl birthday party because I fucking love axolotls. What is it? Like it's like little sea creatures.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know. But like it's way cuter when you're 6 as opposed to 1 because obviously it's for the 6-year-old. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, listen. You guys. See, we're wholesome. Like it's not just politics and doom and stuff like that. So let's just read some comments before we get started.
Yeah.
So Isabel here says good morning. Good morning, Isabel. Stax does not want to wish you good morning. He says to hell with you.
Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, Isabel. Chatula, Prague here is as usual. Thank you, Chatula.
We're always
viewer.
Yeah, we're always like repping Prague. I told him, I said that we should probably franchise. Like after
True.
You should be our Prague correspondent. Stax, you should move to Prague. I should pair up with Chatula.
Why not just Chatula? Are not sea creatures? They're freshwater critters. Okay, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, way to go, you loser.
My niece would be so mad at me. She would be so mad. She'd be like, "You thought they lived in the sea?"
Or like you try to like.
I just see pictures and they're in the water. That's all I know about.
You got to understand, okay?
She shows me pictures all the time.
Stax grew up in Utah, so that's his Mormon education.
I did not grow up in Utah. I lived in Utah. I grew up in LA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that explains that awesome album which you're trying to hide from the world, but that I have that I really like it. I love it, dude. This was funny. As much as I make fun of you, you actually don't have a bigger fan of your products, like your videos and your music
than you. Absolutely,
it's true.
When I've released a video recently. How many? Wait, hold on. There's so much.
I know. Yeah, let's catch up on the comments here first. So, always have to steel myself to be put in a bad mood with this. Listen, yes, we will eventually have something to be happy about in the world of politics, but I'm a cynic by nature.
Yes.
Now Stax, in his privilege, he thinks the world could not be better than.
I don't get it. I look around and I'm like, cops treat me well. I have access to basically any job that I would like. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why everyone's complaining.
He actually doesn't have to pay for anything. He just walks in with his corpse-like pallor, and they're like, white privilege, and he just pays in privilege points. I'm working on my tangent. Let's see. Laura says, Yahalo. Hi, Laura.
I love that. Yahalo.
Alex says, yeah, the political atmosphere has squeezed the joy out of my good. That's again, I am a fun killer. If you walk away from this smiling or feeling any sort of mirth,
that's why he has to bring me on. Because I'm like, no, look, things are good, and we can be hopeful about a lot of things, and things do suck. But look at all this beautiful. And he's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, disgusting. Anytime I see somebody I'm like, I understand it's like a political platitude that every politician has to say. Every politician has to say. Like President Biden says all the time, I've never been more optimistic than I've ever been. It's like, okay. Stop it. But I get he can't say what he's probably thinking.
But
Dude, everything sucks.
Here's the thing.
Know?
Yeah, but like we're also in the most peaceful time in all of human history.
Tell that to Ukraine. Tell that to Ukraine.
No.
You're privileged right now. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You see, he forgot that the rest of the world exists. This is what I'm talking about.
I want you to just acknowledge the fact that an annexation of a country is fucking bonkers news. Okay? That used to happen all the time. Like, you go back any time in between like 100 years from now to the rest of the beginning of humans existing, and territorial expansion
I hope this clip
constant.
I hope this clip goes viral in Ukraine. Somebody should clip this out and send this to people.
You think I don't support Ukraine?
I think you had to be reminded that Ukraine existed just 30 seconds ago. You forgot. You're like, the world is so peaceful, guys. It's just like, it's like the end of Return of the Jedi. See, we're gonna get into a Star Wars argument too.
You're such an asshole. Yeah. But I don't know how to be like, look, I've donated hundreds of dollars to Ukraine, because I don't want to be that guy who's like, I'm so good and so cool.
Why don't you be that guy? Listen,
you know what? I will. I live in an incredibly conservative area. I have a Ukraine flag flying right outside my window, and I hide it.
Suspiciously, we've never seen it.
I put it behind the curtains, so that the landlords can't get like mad at us, right? Because it's like,
you're right. You're placating landlords now. So you're pro landlord, are you? This is
okay.
I love this.
This is just gonna go in circles. All right.
How many concerts do you attend a year? Oh, so I do love live music and concerts. I've been to 4 concerts this year. So
4 this year. I think I'm around the same. I can't name them all.
You mean you've performed?
I'm going to one. I'm going to one next month.
Taylor Swift, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are you like? See, this is what I'm talking about.
I love Taylor Swift.
He's pro Russia.
I wish I could go to a Taylor Swift concert.
He's anti Taylor Swift.
It's way too expensive,
dude. Her box office receipts. Did you read? I read somewhere like
it's insane.
No, like billions of dollars. I'm gonna look this up real quick. Taylor
Swift.
But
to be fair, like her, because it's such a concert experience. Like it is. I don't
set to earn $1 billion in sales. That's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. You're welcome anytime. And then it's even worse if you're from LA.
At least there's no ocean in Utah.
No.
But I've never seen an axolotl out in the wild. Okay. I've seen them at aquariums. I don't know if it's salty or freshwater in an aquarium. And I see them at the pictures that my niece shows me. That is it.
He's actually, well, no, if you're LA's right on the ocean, right? So yeah, you have seen the ocean. I was gonna say you've only ever
I used to go to the ocean all the time.
It's cool.
I know sand crabs, and that's about the extent of my what lives in the ocean things. Because I didn't go that far. I never saw a jellyfish. Like I know those are out there. I never saw one.
Like they're not unicorns. I've read about them. So Alex O'Brien says, yes, in general, the world is less barbaric, but aren't we closer to the self-destruction of the earth and the human? Listen, those are minor details. Stax is like, whoa. We're quibbling here, okay? Like,
look,
small potatoes.
Correct, but you have to pick and choose what you're looking at sometimes. And sometimes
the glass is half full, Alex, okay? Okay, it's half full. Okay.
No, like, because I watched Oppenheimer, and like I was like, look, it is fair to say that, like, yeah, this kind of is the end of all wars when it comes to like nuclear proliferation. Like, yeah, it is accurate to say that there have been way fewer wars now than there have ever been. But I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot if 10 years from now we're just recovering from fallout. Is that worth the risk?
Oh,
I don't know.
The whole time, the rest of us who survive are just gonna be looking at you. You're gonna be eating alone, like whatever radioactive food is left at your like own section. You're gonna be ostracized. The rest of us with all of our.
I have to have the faith in the human race that, like, you know, that story of like the submarine of like the person like was like, we're not sending out the nuclear weapons because I know that this is a mistake. I know that Russia didn't actually.
You lost me at faith in human. What?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I don't understand.
But I'm going to look like, here's the thing. I am going to look like such a goddamn fool when we're recovering from fallout. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Like,
and at least I'm not advocating for this. Like, I'm not saying, at least I'm not, how do I say this?
I don't know how you're going to say it. Good luck.
I don't know how I'm going to say it. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
So, and then Green Cashman says, just saw Peter Frampton. Yes. Phenomenal artist. Okay. Well, we're caught up with the comments. So here are the 3 topics I'd like to discuss, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, so the one that I'm actually looking forward to the most, and not to embarrass Stax here, because as much as I pick on him, I really love the videos that he puts out on his channel. And he put out a second one called "Is a Hot Dog a Sandwich?" A response to "What is a Woman?" Okay, you guys have got to watch this. I actually want to unpack it because it is both philosophically grounded and politically relevant, given that Matt Walsh is an idiot, but a very influential
correct
right-wing idiot. Of course, I said right-wing idiot. It's kind of redundant, but the other 2 things I want to talk about are I think there is an impending constitutional crisis from 2 branches going into 2024, which I think is really interesting. And then the other thing, and this is interesting for me, normally I would not focus on this, but it is a culture war talking point. But unlike your
gotta
culture,
get those views.
But unlike your culture war talking point, it's actually germane to electoral politics.
Okay.
You know, it's not like this obscure.
Wait, what are my culture wars that I engage in?
I have no idea at this point. I'll be honest with you. I don't, because I don't watch your TikToks because I'm not on TikTok. Remember? So, okay, but it's about the curriculum in Florida. About mandating. There's a line in a 200-page curriculum by the Florida Board of Education. And the line is that they have to teach how enslaved people in some instances benefited from presumably their experience, and they were able to apply those skills to their lives afterwards. So there's obviously, and some of this is because, like, obviously it's dominated the news. Vice President Harris, publicly commented on it. It's been all over Fox News. You've had historians and sociologists and all the academia and it's actually generated quite a bit of negative response from Republican politicians like Tim Scott and Byron Donalds, these conservative Republicans who are pretty sympathetic to most anti-woke talking points and anti-woke initiatives, have actually come out and condemned the Florida curriculum, which I also think is interesting. So I think we'll do. Do you want to do yours first, or do you want to do yours at the end?
Sure. Okay. I can tell a little story real quick about it, because in the beginning of the video,
in the beginning
of this video, I play this character, and he's part of a show called Pondering Pop Culture, which is a dig at Josiah. And later in the video, I make fun of it. And
5 minutes in the video, later in the video, 5 minutes in.
5 minutes in the video, I make fun of it, and I go, "Who would ever think of such a stupid fucking name for a channel?" Right? I said something like that to that.
We don't need him anymore. I think we should just ditch this. I don't even like this guy. I don't even know what the point is. I give him nothing but compliments and everything, and I support his projects, and he just gives me nothing back. It's absolutely one-sided. This is crap. This is just ridiculous. It's an abusive relationship is what it is. I'll bring him back on. Just give me a second apiece. Okay. Oh, hey, sorry, we lost connection there.
I don't know what happened. I was just and so while I was writing it, I thought it was really funny, and I was like, "Oh, I got to talk to Josiah and make sure that that's cool."
And he didn't even care at all.
And then I got so wrapped up into filming and editing, I had moved past it, and I finally posted it, and it was like a week of work, and it was just well, no, it wasn't just a week of work. It was a month, because all of the camera issues I've been having and all that shit. So it took ages for me to put all together. It was so much. It was everything that I was thinking of. And then I put it out, and then he texts me, and he's like, "Dude, what the fuck?" Because he doesn't get to the bit yet. He's like, "Did you just steal my name?"
Yeah, I thought you totally subliminally completely
forgot.
Yeah, stole.
I completely forgot that I forgot to mention to him that I was gonna steal his name to make fun of him. So I was like, "Oh, I'll talk about it." And it'll be like, "Oh, people might look it up." And then there's if you look up Pondering Pop Culture, you will see a video immediately of me and him, so you could piece together, "Oh, I'm just making fun of him," if you haven't heard of him. But I also lead him to his channel, so I was like, "Oh, it's beneficial," but it's also contributing to this joke that has been happening constantly, where I make fun of every name that he's ever put out.
Even though it's brilliant, Pondering Pop Culture, the alliteration, the simplicity of it, Pondering Politics, also the alliteration, so much better than Rum 1 N8. Even though I've been getting crap from that too, why'd you change your name? I can't win with anybody. I just can't win. That's why the channel's called Pondering Politics. I've got a separate channel which I've done one video on because my life has just been consumed with politics, called Pondering Pop Culture, because believe it or not, I do have interests outside of politics. Sometimes I have to stretch and remember that. But yeah, it's called Pondering Pop Culture. You should definitely like and subscribe. There's going to be more content eventually. I actually got a tripod for the teleprompter, so I can start doing these video essays, the script ones. So yeah,
nice.
So let's get into the video itself, because I do want. I don't know if we'll have time to play all of it, but I do want to play, and it's going to be at like 1.25 speed.
Oh, sure.
So let me share the screen here, but we also have to do it in a way where there's not that echo. So tell me if you hear the echo, Stax.
I am attempting to. Yeah, I hear the echo.
Okay, so then we don't want to do that. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. We want to do. Say something.
Hello. No echo.
Good. Well, hang on. Why can't I?
Technical difficulties, folks.
Folk.
I like folk.
Oh my God! It just wiped out the chat. I hate.
It wiped out the chat. I can see the chat right here.
Well, I can't, and that's really what matters.
Chatula said yes. The video is brilliant. Shout out to Chatula. They are. I think.
So here's what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to do it this way, and then when you want to stop at a certain point, you're just gonna have to say stop, and then we'll commentate on it. Okay. Okay, so guys, this is folks, this is a hot dog, a sandwich, a response to what is a woman. We're gonna play this at 1.25 speed, not 2.5 speed, 1.25 speed, and we're gonna unpack it as we go along, because I think this is really, really good. And for context, Stax, what drove you to make this video in a very
in a broad way? So shout out to Elle, who's a friend of the channel. She's been on with us every once in a while. I've always kind of been fascinated by language, and trans issues have always been specifically like a really interesting topic for me, just because I've always, and I get into this in the video, that like I've always been that grammar nerd. I've always been that one who takes so much interest in definitions and language and the dictionary and things like that. So when people started talking about like what is the definition of a woman or something, I was like, oh, I've been thinking about this my entire life. Like I have this has been such a sticking point for me whenever we talk about this stuff. And I started having conversations with Elle about how exactly we define and categorize like things as it, like not just gender. And I think that's what I get to at the root of this video, is that the conversations that we've been having around gender are ones we've been having about language for thousands of years. But now it is political. Like, well, I guess language has kind of always been political, but like we can always brush it off as like, oh, what is a hot dog is a sandwich, and we don't have to be serious about it, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a meme, if that makes sense. But as soon as we start applying real world applications, like we're going to go to war over whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. Okay, now these sort of distinctions matter, but we've been talking about these distinctions forever. But we don't seem to be applying the lessons that we've learned from 1,000 years ago to right now, because for some reason we think it's fundamentally different. So
well, let me ask you this too again, and I don't want to, because I do want to play this. And actually, we're not going to do after this. I do want to talk about the constitutional crisis thing, but we're just going to scrap the Florida thing because we won't have the time, and I'd rather talk about the constitutional thing. It's much more substantive.
Sure.
But as far as your video is concerned, I thought it was like a year ago that the What is a Woman documentary came out.
Yeah,
checked. It was. So it was over a year ago. So have you been kicking this around for basically a year, or did you?
I mean, a lot of it came with my friendship with Elle, where I would just call her and we would just talk about gender, and I would read like Judith Butler and things like that. And I would start really figuring out, like, I feel like I came to a bunch of realizations when it came to gender and language that I had recently come down to. And also, I think it was popular when it first came out, but I don't think I really felt it until recently. My girlfriend Shelby has incredibly conservative family members, and they basically played What is a Woman for their entire family, including like their like kids, right? Like the 4-year-olds who thought it was like hilarious. Like, look at these fucking idiots. Obviously a woman is just my mom, and a man is just my dad. Why do you think my dad can be my mom? And I think that I saw it on such a personal level recently. And also it got really big on Twitter where Elon Musk started pushing it. I think that happened like I think when that happened, when that happened, I was like, I want to sit down and write this script. And then I just had technical difficulties just up the wazoo. So it's been taking a while for me to put this out, but I wrote this a while ago.
When did you intend, like technical issues aside, when do you think this would have been dropped? Like if there were no other issues?
I think like 2 months before.
Oh, wow. So this really has been a labor of love.
It has been. Yeah. And that's why I was like so exhausted by it. Because when I initially wrote it, I was like, well, I just got to deal with the camera thing. And I had just like fully moved past that because I was like 2 months, I wrote the script ages ago. And I had it go through a bunch of rewrites because like I want to make sure, shout out to Elle from the channel. And shout out to, I don't know if you guys know Nominal Naomi, but she's really big on TikTok and YouTube. She took a stab at the script and had a lot of really, really constructive points that I definitely hit.
So really, Elle and Naomi are responsible for the brilliance of it. You're basically
correct.
You're
100%.
If I were like the fool that they put out, they were like, listen, we'll allow this person to perform our masterpiece.
For sure. For sure. And when you look at the first character where it's like super really frustrated and agitated about like there's not distinct boundaries in language, that is a portion of me. Like I definitely I bring out that character to show how angry it is. And it's like obviously an exaggeration, but I do feel that sometimes, and I do feel frustrated sometimes that there aren't clear and hard boundaries in between man and woman. And or in like any sort of category in language. And I think like those conversations really showed me how like that is how language is, and I kind of have to get over it. And that's kind of what the video shows, is like this one character is like super fucking angry and stuff, slowly like realizing and getting over the fact that language does in fact have to exist this way, because we can't be like Latin, right, where we're like, no, these are the hard boundaries, this is exactly how it ends, and then the language just dies because of it. Right, because they refuse to move on or change how people change when people use it in a different way than it was intended.
Fair. So. All right, we're gonna start playing this.
Hello and welcome to Pondering Pop Culture, where we investigate your.
That's your thing.
Pondering pop culture. Oh.
Favorite memes with the scope of science and using just a little detective work. Now, you might be familiar with the question, is a hot dog a sandwich? Now, here's a little meme we can use as a reference guide. Credit to Matomic from Twitter. Matomic, sorry about that. So, before we ask if a hot dog is a sandwich, we should ask, what is a sandwich? Well, according to this meme, one axis is defined by your rigidity to ingredients and the other by structure. Not pictured on this list are foods that we absolutely do not think are sandwiches, like chicken nuggets. So the purists, the foods that we can all agree are sandwiches, are BLTs. And the sandwiches that really only the true radicals claim are Pop-Tarts.
So I don't know if you intended to do this, but I did want to ask you about this. You so you're sitting at a desk with a globe and a map of the world behind you, which makes me think, okay, a classroom. But you are dressed like you just left a meth lab. So I thought you were going for like a Breaking Bad aesthetic, right? Like, are you supposed to be Walter White?
So the funny bit is like I was trying to do like a Bill Nye kind of thing, right? Where I was like kind of in front. Yeah, but then here's the thing.
No, what you were going for?
So in the script, in my literal script. No, this is important. No, this is important. So like, because in the script it said lab coat, right? I was thinking of just doing like a lab coat instead of the meth thing. But I was shopping around for like 5 different places, and I finally found this over the top fucking like meth lab thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this and it's just going to contribute to his frustration. And I say that at the end. I was like, the script said lab coat, like, because he gets so angry as he goes on that like it's not perfect or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I think it just works with with what I'm doing here, if that makes sense. But I did in my head originally, this guy was just supposed to wear a lab coat and I literally couldn't find one. So I was like, you know what? I just want to get this shit done. I don't want to order one off the internet.
Yeah, so he was going for Bill Nye here, okay? He ends up doing Walter White, okay? What a absolute contrast. When I was watching this, I was rolling because I'm like, is this supposed to be, he's like season 1 Walter White is what he was going for. but
well, like it's obviously a bit. It's a character of like a poorly designed show. So I think any sort of like fuck ups that I made during like props or anything like that kind of contributed to the aesthetic. So I was like, I'll try where I can. But
I love
like,
the
if
fact
I
that
fail,
even the map is off center. I think that's brilliant because it looks like deliberately amateurish. Deliberately amateurish.
Yeah. That's
All
what I
right,
was going
let's
for.
get back to it. Let's get back to this magnum opus from Elle and Naomi featuring Stax.
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Well, let's look at the components of what makes a sandwich. With any category, there are sufficient and necessary conditions. Sufficient conditions for sandwiches means that if the food meets this qualification, it will be defined as a sandwich. But just because the item doesn't have this thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be a sandwich. Necessary conditions are if an item loses this condition, it will no longer be a sandwich. Now, that might sound confusing, but to help you understand, let's look at the components of a sandwich. 1. An edible food. 2. A food enveloped within another food. 3. The enveloping ingredient is split into 2 pieces. 4. Bread is the enveloping ingredient. 5. Meat or cheese are enveloped. 6. Eaten as a small meal. Now, if we look at the chart again, we can see that only 2 out of 6 of these conditions are decidedly necessary. Everyone agrees that if a thing is not enveloped within another thing, it will not be a sandwich. And we all agree that a sandwich needs to be a food. Well, at least, no, sorry, because sorry. When I was in high school, I sat in between 2 Toms, and the teacher always called us a Tom sandwich. So is that a metaphor or is that a secondary definition? I don't know, but we can use this moment of uncertainty to just consult a dictionary. After all, we are truth seekers on a quest for the objective definition of a sandwich. And here. So,
sidebar, not to nitpick here, but what if, okay, listen, technically, to a lion, you are food, or to a cannibal, your Tom sandwich does meet that criteria,
but like,
doesn't it?
Doesn't it? But like, this is
to
a cannibal,
to Hannibal Lecter or a cannibal or some sort of like carnivorous creature.
But this is the entire point of the video is like there is no objective, and like you can make these sort of like, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? All every day, and so like you see him go down these rabbit holes, and he starts losing his goddamn mind because he realizes there is no.
I understand. We're going to unpack it together. Don't spoil it for them.
But like,
I'm just saying that your teacher could have either been 2 things: a cannibal or a lion.
Oh, also,
you got nothing.
You got
to refute that.
You got the reference right of like who he was kind of trying. I have this reference where it was like at the end where he's like, we're gonna do this live or something like that.
Oh, Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, I was doing a Bill O'Reilly bit where I was like, as soon as the cameras are off,
live,
I'm just like so fucking angry. Because like obviously I'm trying to like play this like a little bit of a psychopath, which is why I'm like smiling for like 5 seconds in the beginning.
That I guarantee you, Elle and Naomi didn't have to edit that part in. They were like, "Wow, that comes off super natural." You're over here. I
don't think they had like any points for this first bit. This is like all my psychotic little.
Actually, this is unscripted. I'm pretty sure this is just they're like, "Hey, turn on the camera. All right, let's go back to it."
We have 2 or more slices of bread or a split roll having a filling in between, but then a part B as 1 slice of bread covered with food. 1 piece of bread. Well, there you have it, folks. That is what a hot dog is. Also, no mention of the non-food sandwiches like I mentioned earlier, so those are metaphors, not technical sandwiches. We did it. We ascertained the correct and objective definition of a sandwich using the power of a dictionary. Sarah, can we cut? Can we cut? No. Just because it says 2 or more slices of bread with a filling of meat, cheese, but then it says squeeze in between others. That's what this dictionary says. So it's not a metaphor. Tom sandwich really is a sandwich, but here's why I said cut. It's because this doesn't say anything about the 1 slice of bread. This dictionary doesn't think a hot dog is a sandwich. So where did you pull yours from? Well, I don't know if Merriam-Webster's is better than Oxford to you, but now that I'm looking at your definition, can we pull it back up? Can we pull it back up? Thank you. That's all I'm asking for. It says 1 slice of bread covered with food. So a pizza is now a sandwich. Is that what you're telling me? That's even more radical than a Pop-Tart being one. And the more that I look at this definition, the more I realize that chicken nuggets, the food that I thought we could all agree is decidedly not a sandwich, is a bread with a filling of meat in between. And now I'm looking back over here at Merriam-Webster's definition. Can you pull it back up? Can you pull it back up? Can you pull it back up? Thank you. It says something resembling a sandwich. A sandwich is defined as something resembling a sandwich. What the fuck? Yeah, and right now I'm thinking maybe I could just discard Merriam-Webster's as a shitty dictionary. But Did I mention this? I looked this up last night in preparation, and Google gave a different definition, a third definition. Can we look it up? Thank you. It says, an item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, or other filling between them, eaten as a light meal, eaten as a light meal, eaten as a light meal. And I went, interesting, how do I define a light meal? So then I looked up meal definition. Can you pull it up? Can you show it, everyone? Can you show everyone? Pull it up. Thank you. Thank you. Any of the regular occasions in a day when a reasonably large amount of food is eaten, such as breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Reasonably large, it says. A light meal. And what is a meal? Well, it's large. A light, large amount of food. A small, big food. A short, giant. You figure out how tall it is. And by the way, this dictionary, it says 2 pieces of bread, but an Uncrustable, that's 1 piece of bread. So does Oxford not think that an Uncrustable is a sandwich now? And is an oatmeal cream pie a sandwich? Because that's what it looks like when I'm looking at all of this. And it looks like to me, looking at this stupid dictionary, no, fuck you, Sarah. We're doing this live. The script fucking sucks. Pondering pop culture, I can't think of a stupider fucking name. And this...
Oh my God.
Script said lab coat, by the way. I'm suffocating in this. I'm done, okay? A sandwich is whatever the fuck I say a sandwich is.
And actually, before we jump into the next part, I was also thinking too, like, okay, something resembling a sandwich. So like, like if you have like a rubber prop of a thing that looks like a sandwich, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a sandwich.
That's a sandwich.
Yeah.
But no one would ever call it a sandwich. They would say,
no, but they would.
It looks like a sandwich.
No, they would call it a sandwich. They say, hey, can you bring that sandwich over? If you're on set and you're like, oh, hey, someone bring the sandwich in. It's like, that kind of stuff happens all the time where people will call it, but then if someone says, is this a sandwich? They would go, no, but they would.
That's what I'm saying. One. Okay. Yes. You're right.
That's like
in context, they would refer to it. Like if you were on a movie set or even like, I don't know, it's Fisher Price or whatever. Like, those toy companies that would make like, kitchenettes or whatever, and they would have like rubber props of toys. I guarantee you there are rubber sandwiches out there.
But like that is the constant complication of language where someone will call it a sandwich, and then when asked, will say, "Of course, this isn't a sandwich."
But it is a sandwich, but it isn't. It's Schrodinger's sandwich.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
you figured it out. Oh, also, by the way, when I was doing that take, I was like, "This is it. This is the one I use." I'm gonna just throw my goggles to see how frustrating it is, and I tried to hit the mic. I didn't try to hit the mic. I tried to hit my little stand thing, and it would just like fall over and hit the mic. And I was like,
so
that's going to sound
remember
cool
how
anyway.
you're a language geek and you love grammar? You're like, I try to hit the stand thing. Okay, that's my impression of you, by the way. I've never understood the existential crisis over hot dog being a sandwich, but I've seen it happen in real life. Yeah. Well, again, it's a metaphor. It's just a framing device, really, at the end of the day, for
what I'm trying to talk.
A concise and brutal refutation of Matt Walsh's willful ignorance. Wow, really? The only possible explanation for that whole little Freedom Caucus thing they've got going up there is they've got to be putting forth a conscious effort to out-stupid each other. I don't know if you mean the actual Freedom Caucus with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and everybody, or you mean like the broader conservative thought movement as exemplified by Matt Walsh. But I actually think that description applies equally, that they're all trying to out-stupid each other. It's a fierce competition.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
I used to be obsessed with grammar. Like, I was that kid who would go around high school correcting people if they said I could care less. Actually, it's I couldn't care less, because if you could care less, then that means that you do care, at least to some extent, right? See, I was someone who cared about facts and logic and what is right and wrong. And the more you learn about rules of grammar and syntax, paradoxically, you sound more and more confusing. I remember junior year of high school, I learned that the grammar rule is not to end your sentences with prepositions. And there was a new kid, and I went to ask him where he was from. Where are from you? From where are you? Hey man, from where are you? And the new kid was like, bro, what the hell are you saying? So I did some digging, and it turns out that rule is considered illegitimate. But that didn't ease my headache, because who considers what is legitimate and what isn't? Because I was told that ain't wasn't a word, but also apron was a word that came from a mispronunciation about 800 years ago that happened so many times we just said that was the right word. Okay came from a dumb joke 200 years ago that we just collectively forgot the punchline to. And it seems like rules about what should or shouldn't be allowed are just choosing an arbitrary date a few hundred years ago and saying that anything that happens before that date is set in stone correct, and anything after is slang, which is the reason why our culture is depreciating. But I guess the dictionary makes those decisions so that I don't have to. And then I noticed that ain't was in the dictionary. And then I had a panic attack. It sounds like an extreme response, but up to that point, I'd lived life believing like there was a structure holding up communication, one with rules and solidness, and then it disappeared, and I forgot how to speak. See, I was what linguists would derisively call a prescriptivist. Prescriptivists believe that a rule book...
I have other derisive nicknames for you, just FYI. I would also point out that I'm just imagining you like this prematurely aged 8th grader having an existential crisis and a panic attack over seeing ain't in the dictionary.
It was way later than that.
In 8th grade. You were that. You're like,
no, it was high school. I was like up it because I got so obsessed. I got so obsessed with like following every single piece of grammar. Like I'm being so charitable to myself right now, where I'm like, no, it was just that I couldn't care less. It was like every single rule I learned and I followed to a T, and I would get mad at people when they didn't follow. Like I was a dick, and like
was
yeah, true. Yeah.
Shall we continue?
Yeah, that's fine.
Shall we continue?
Exists for a language, and then the speakers should follow it. Descriptivists, on the other hand, study how people speak and create reference guides. All right, I'm losing you. Let's say you're walking down a street and you've got a map of the city that you're in, but you stumble onto a house that is not in the map. Now, what a prescriptivist would say is that the only logical conclusion to this discrepancy is to get into a bulldozer and flatten the house. Because, after all, the map is sacred. It doesn't describe the world around us, it prescribes the world around us. It's not even really a map at all, it's more a blueprint. But I think we can agree that this is fairly silly, right? Because the map doesn't show how things should be, it shows how things are, and we can always just edit the map. Well, the exact same thing applies to dictionaries and language.
I think that was a great metaphor you used there with the map. Although seeing you outside holding it up makes me think that you were actually walking away from a demolition site, having demolished the house. You're like, yeah, this is absolutely silly. There's like a smoking ruin behind you. You're like, this house, I refuse to have it in this neighborhood unless it's on the map.
Could you? Sorry. Yeah, I just want to say a few things. So I actually do have a correct answer to you, where it's like, why did this take so long after What is a Woman? And I'm remembering now, like while I was piecing together this, I had made so many TikToks about this subject that I was like, I can just chain this all together into a video and like have skits involved instead of just like me ranting at a camera. I've mentioned this like maps are blueprint, or like prescriptivists treat maps as blueprints before. That was something I stumbled on 8 months ago when I was like doing a video on like language prescriptivism when it comes to like what is a woman. Like I've gone through the gamut. I've like made like 20 videos on these things, and then I was like, I've had these ideas and I've had new ideas every time I try to make something. I can actually put this all together into a video, and when I did, I had even more ideas on like how to tack this in together. So yeah.
Cool.
There's this famous story where the philosopher Plato is asked to define a human, and Plato says that humans are featherless bipeds. So Diogenes the cynic went and plucked a chicken and threw it at Plato, yelling, "Behold, Plato's man." This story gets told so many times, but what we fail to acknowledge is that Plato's definition wasn't all that bad. Because the moment you start picking at definitions, they fall apart like scabs. There will always be a plucked chicken, something that technically meets a definition, but we all know it doesn't belong in the category. And that's because maps aren't really that specific at all. The reason that house wasn't on the map is because the map is zoomed out and only shows the necessary bits and asks the reader to fill in the gaps. And that's why we're not sure if hot dogs are sandwiches. We kind of have to figure out the blurry boundaries that the map doesn't outline. And I'm going to call these blurred boundaries the hot dog zone. I guess it's a light meal, but it doesn't have the shape of a prototypical sandwich. It kind of belongs. It depends on if you're a person who cares about structure or ingredients. There are lots of things that exist in the hot dog zone. Is Pluto a planet? Well, depends on if you're a scientist who cares about how objects leave orbits, or a Roman who cares about big lights in the sky that are named after gods. Dictionaries are more reference guides or pointers than objective rulebooks, because if you meet an alien and they ask for which ones the humans are, and you tell them the featherless bipeds, they'll probably figure out that it's you and me and won't go plucking a bunch of dead chickens. Let's imagine you work at a company. You don't really know why you do what you do, but you get paid decently enough not to ask questions. Your job is pretty simple. This chute deposits a bunch of items, and it's your job to sort them. Blue eggs, we'll call them blegs for short, are made of plastic with a crack running through the middle of them. red cubes or rubes are made of paper, so are obviously flimsier, and they have a crack here along the bottom. When a bleg comes down the chute, you put it in the bleg basket. Same for the rubes. It goes well for a few days, but then one day, you see this. A member of the hot dog zone. You're not sure where to put it, so you ask your supervisor, and she says that some blegs are a little discolored, but you can still tell that that's a bleg, right? Well, she is right. I mean, other than the color, it looks identical. It's plastic, sturdy, and has a crack right where we would expect a bleg's crack to be. But then again, the reason we're calling them blegs is because they're blue eggs. This is not a blue egg. But we don't have an I'm unsure basket. We only have these two. So you put it in the bleg basket because you listen to your supervisor like the good little wage slave you are. Another day goes by, and this comes down the chute. Another hot dog. Okay, probably a rube, but damn, I'm not sure. And the reason we're not sure is because we don't know why we're sorting them. Maybe we're sorting them by color, so it should be put in the bleg basket. Maybe we're sorting them by shape and material, so the rube. So you ask your supervisor why we're sorting them this time, and she explains that these items are mined underground and blegs hold aluminum, and this is a company that makes foil. So she pops open your hot dog, and there's the foil. She tells you to put it into the bleg basket because that's the basket that gets sent to the compressor. But now you get curious. So you go back through, and you open up all of the blegs, and you find that one of them doesn't have foil in it. You tell your supervisor, and she says, look, it's not perfect, but 98% of blegs contain foil, so we're throwing them in here because it's quicker than checking them all manually. So you get back to your station, and you say, ooh, if I just work harder than everyone, I will become a millionaire. So says Daddy America. So I'll open up every bleg and every rube and find out if it has foil, and they'll promote me because I am doing the work that they don't expect me to do. So you spend your work opening up every bleg and every rube. And you find this. A rube with foil in it. You go to throw the rube in the bleg basket, but wait, I just called this a rube, but is this a rube? I mean, we can call it a different item, make up a new word for it, but we already have a word for red cubes. They're called rubes. And we also have a word for items that get thrown into the bleg basket. They're called blegs. I hope you can see that there are no true or false ways to organize these items. We can make true or false claims of underlying facts of the matter. Like I can say that it's true that this item is made of paper and not plastic, and it's cubed and not egg-shaped. But I cannot make objective statements on where to draw the boundaries of these items. This might lead you to believe that we can draw boundaries wherever we want, but that doesn't mean that we should. I could say that a bleg is every other item that I see, and the other ones are rubes. But that seems needlessly confusing, so why would I do that? You're just going to give everyone a headache. But you can judge categorizations as better or worse instead of true or false. I think it's better for me to call this a rube because it'll confuse me if I don't call a red cube a rube. But you might want to call this a bleg because it'll confuse you if you don't put a bleg in the bleg basket. Or maybe we can pick a new name for these things. After all, categories are teleological, meaning outcome-oriented. There is no intrinsic, true name to call this. Names and categories and boundaries are social constructs that exist only to understand and organize the world. But also, when we come up with definitions, it's probably best that we all get on the same page. Because if I say, give me all of the blegs, and you hand me this thing, I'm just going to be confused and frustrated. This leads us to apparently...
So before we dive into the next section, sorry, I just get... Yeah. Again, I pick on you a lot, but kudos to you. This is actually really engrossing.
Thank you.
Just like watching it again. So what do you? I don't know if you want to respond to some comments here.
Sure.
We'll start with a couple from Alex. So Alex says, that's why language is best when it evolves and tries to give best meaning so that we can learn to communicate better.
Yeah, 100%. Like a lot of things that people find frustrating right now, you wouldn't like. What I really realized as like a senior in high school when I started doing all of these deep dives on like etymology and language and grammar and things like that, like you can be frustrated right now that like the word bemiss or like I see people get like frustrated that like people are misconstruing that word all the time, and they're like, but it sounds like it's kind of similar to this word, so I'm just going to kind of use it the same way that like this word, or like proffer, kind of like sometimes used as if it were the word offer or something like that. Like a lot of these words sort of like change around based off of how we think that it works, but also the word awesome, right? Like that is a word that we all know to mean like, oh, dope, great, cool, but that is not how that word. That's not what that word means.
No,
that word
to
is
inspire
like,
awe.
Yeah, and people would say like the awesome power of the atomic bomb.
Right.
Like, I am like it's not good. It is awe-inspiring. And that is not how we use the word right now. But like you would be such an idiot if you went to like point at anyone who said the word awesome. It's like, stop saying it. Stop saying that word. Right. That word means not good. Like I could say it however I say it
awesome,
the correct way.
Awesome. Yeah. So again, the classical definition, it's value neutral. It's to inspire awe. Good things can inspire awe. Terrible things can inspire awe. I'm reminded when you were talking in that line of Harry Potter when Ollivander was talking about Voldemort, and he's like, "He who must not be named did terrible things or great things, terrible but great." Because great is another example where it's actually value neutral. It simply means tremendous. You know what I mean? And at least in one of the definitions.
Yeah, and
great evil, great good.
And I think what I realized is I have to have there are only two options that I can do. I can, one, say that all words are how exactly we are meant to orient them. But as the more I go back, the more I'm like, wait, English as an entirety shouldn't exist. I should only be speaking Old English, or even further than that. Like every single iteration of new languages are just like new pronunciations as you move forward, or like new words that we develop. So
it's moved so far along that I do know, like, linguists have said that, I don't know if it's like Old English or Middle English, at a certain point we would not be able to understand an English speaker. It's either old or middle, because it's moved by so many degrees so far over time.
So and that's what I think what caused me to have like a little, and I'm being a little hyperbolic when I said panic attack, but I had like a full on like existential crisis when I was like looking at all of this, because I'm like, wait, if I want to maintain this structure in language, I can no longer speak English.
Right.
Like this every single word that I pull up and I look through, I'm like, no, this was just a like even if I say the word poop or something, that's such a funny origin. Do you know where that word comes from?
No, I don't know the etymology.
It's little kids who are like, I want to mimic what a butthole does. So poop. It's a little, it like opens up and then it closes.
I just want to change the subject now.
And
I want to
all of these words.
You knowing that, I'm sorry, wait a minute. You knowing that makes me want to stop watching this video. I know
so much etymology of like so many words.
I feel like that came up during your first date with Sherbs. You're like, hey, you know where the word poop comes from?
No, I love this shit. I love this shit. I got so invested in so much etymology, and I still look up, like every time I hear a new word, I'm like, I wonder where that came from. And I pull up etym online every time. But like basically what you have to do is recognize that words are defined as how people use them. And that was such a mind-breaking like place that I found myself in as soon as I realized that every rule is just things that people did, and then we went, a lot of people are doing this. There was
enough of a consensus, yes, but not even necessarily absolute. So what's funny is and this is, just work with me here, but this is actually in a very abstract way related to one of the topics which I said we were going to ditch just for the sake of time, which was the discussion about the Florida Board of Education mandating again, it was a 200-page document. So it wasn't like this was the entirety, but they did say that, listen, you have to instruct to middle schoolers that enslaved people developed skills during slavery that they were then able to apply for their personal benefit. Now, the reason that I think that at least some of the backlash is justified is because the way I was looking at it is, I don't want to say the history is arbitrary, but you're taught an abridged version of history in every social studies class, or really every history class that you're taught.
You choose what
history is comprised of tens of millions or billions or trillions of moments. So how do you assign value and what you prioritize? I think it's perfectly fair for progressives or the left or liberals or whatever, when you combine the fact, like, okay, this isn't even just a history class. It's not even just a history of slavery class. It's a social studies curriculum, of which history is one component of social studies. It's not, they're not synonymous. Because you also learn civics and everything else as well.
And this goes back to something that you said earlier, when you were talking about the Supreme Court trying to pretend like they're apolitical. We are all political. And when we teach history, we have to recognize that we are picking and choosing what specifically to teach based off of our preconceptions. And if we just try to ignore that and we're like, no, I'm just teaching history as it is, this did happen, instead of an acknowledgement of like the fact that you are picking and choosing what to talk about and specifically ignoring certain areas, that is all political.
Right. And so what's interesting is, and I guess to me, that's the relationship of of what you were just saying relevant to this. It's like, because on Twitter and in Destiny's community, because it came up in a conversation with Destiny that I was involved at the tail end of, there are people who that I had a conversation with. There was at least one who was like, I disagree with that at all. This idea, like, it shouldn't matter that you're cherry picking certain facts. If that is a fact, then it's fair game. And it's like,
Sure.
to me, that's such I don't know what the word, that's such a like an
Cop out.
that's like an absurdly untenable position.
For sure.
And to you talking about rules of language, it's the same thing. Like, that to me will inevitably lead to an existential crisis. If you're like, listen, it's just zeros and ones, mathematical precision.
Yes.
And, like, it's an untenable position. And so to me, that's where I think the relationship exists, where no, there is a degree of inconsistency. There's a degree of arbitrariety to both rules and language, and also, again, what you choose to teach in terms of a social studies class or history. And so, to me,
and
so I'm curious, like, with you talking about, so have you made peace? Are you saying, in this video, have you made peace with,
I think it's still
flexibility of language?
I think there's still a person, like a very small part of me, who's frustrated that this exists, but like that this is how language exists, who kind of wants that stability. But also there's a new part of me that definitely didn't exist when I was a senior in high school, that was like, there is kind of this beauty to the ambiguity. Like, that is where art exists. That is where language and sort of like human interaction exists, that I do think I didn't fully appreciate when I was younger. So I definitely like took my stand there, but like definitely sometimes I look back and like fond memory, like, oh, I kind of miss when I just like, language was perfect, but to go back to your point really quickly about like education, my brother sort of had that same perspective, and I'm Jewish.
When you
like
say
my
the
family,
same perspective, I'm sorry,
about history. Sorry,
the same as
like the ones and zeros. Just teach them as facts. Yes, you have to cherry pick, but like that doesn't matter, right? Just teach it how it is. And my family died in the Holocaust. They're like aspects of my obviously, like, not my extended family, right?
Sure.
Like 3 generations up. And I was like, okay, let me teach the Holocaust to you then. And I was like teaching in a very kids were indoctrinated into believing this sort of thing. Also, historians contest the exact number of like Jewish deaths. And he's like, yes, of course, but like it's still this number. Like, it's still like all historians agree it's over 7 million. I'm like, I'm not going to get into that, right? And he's like, and like you could see him like almost like get so goddamn frustrated. He was like, no, you have to include that part. I'm like, why? I'm just speaking facts. Everything that I'm speaking right now is a fact. Historians do dispute the number of actual people who have died in the Holocaust. And he's like, no, because they didn't keep like, we don't have the exact numbers, sure, but like we know we have a pretty good estimate, and it's sure as hell millions, like over 6 million people. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. Okay. I'm going to ignore that fact.
Right.
And he was like, no, like, and you could see him like, you are saying fact. Like, as soon as you start teaching that untenable position and go to the extremes, you're like, no. There is not facts and opinions. You can only speak facts in a very, very guided and misleading way to purposely derail you, so that you always have that option to just go, hey, look, I'm just teaching facts, right? Are you going to contest? Are you?
Yeah,
I'm telling me that historians don't. Yeah.
An obtuse way of I'm just teaching facts to me is like just an inbred cousin of I'm just asking questions. It's kind of the same thing. You can mislead with cherry-picked facts if you ignore certain context. And
100%.
to me, that's where it's so interesting when you look at like, and again, we're talking history in this case, but also language too. When you look at etymology, and epistemology is just like the broader notion of what we know, and also pedagogy, what we teach and how we teach it. To me, it's like I have incredible, like when you were talking about as a high schooler or whatever, having this existential crisis because you were almost absurdly literal zeros and ones with your interpretation of language. I get it. I'm sympathetic to it. Yeah. But like I have a bit of disdain for high school stacks because I'm like, let it grow up. It's
no,
just
totally.
And
like, I do too. No, 100%. And I do think that there's a lot of like, I think a lot of people do feel that way of like, no, I do kind of wish like language exists in this 100% area. Like and that's why I was like really excited about this character, because I think a lot of people really feel a lot of sympathy towards that person who's like, wait, dictionaries have different definitions, and like if I don't follow this to the T, like maybe it is, maybe it isn't, and I just have to be okay with that. Like I think people just want hard and fast rules without
No, I
acknowledging.
completely. I mean, listen, I think that like just even outside of education and outside of everything, I think we are predisposed as a general rule to try to remove as much ambiguity from our lives as possible. Like
Totally.
like
Yeah.
completely switching subjects, like even in interpersonal relationships, for romantic relationships or friendships or even professional relationships, I value as much absence of ambiguity as possible. Like, don't tell
Yeah.
me you're fine when you're not fine. Like, don't, you
Totally.
know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
totally get that you want as much concretization of the world as you can possibly
For
get.
sure.
But I guess, as you know, being 32 now and dealing with, I've got friends who to this day are my age who I love dearly, but like are absurdly literal with so many things and just completely untenable. Like, we'll have you ask Jordan, who you met, about a mutual friend I'm thinking of, who is very intelligent, but it's zeros and ones,
For
zeros and
sure.
ones, and he will like throw himself into fits
Yeah.
with, because a word is a word is a word, and
For
it's just
sure.
this absolute inflexible definition. And so when I see people on Reddit or on Twitter or have conversations with people who are like, and getting all the way back to Matt Walsh, and thinking that these definitions are concretized, and
Yeah.
that it's so, again, there's just like a disdain for it that I struggle with, because I'm like, grow up. I
For sure.
understand that you want to try to remove as much ambiguity as possible from the world. I get it and I share it.
Totally.
But you
Totally.
must accept that virtually everything does have a degree of ambiguity. And if you don't,
And
you're a child, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, and you even go down the like, well, what about like computer science? Like obviously that has no room of ambiguity. But even that has a great deal of like, no, it does matter what facts you teach this thing. And a great example is when people were saying that like the hand washing or hand drying machines were they were saying quote unquote racist, and conservatives are like, how can a machine be racist? It's like, well, they didn't test for brown hands. So if you put a brown hand there, they're not going to know. They're just going to like, oh, we're perceived to this color right here, so we're not going to use it for anything else. Like, yes, that machine is just ones and zeros, but it is spitting out bigotry based off of what is put into it. And like every single place, every single facet of our life, there is that like, it depends on what facts we teach, and we have to care about truth over facts. And that was a conversation that I had with Destiny quite a bit ago, where I was like, even like you can teach things that are not factual, that are truthful, and that is better than being factual. Like when we talk about the vaccine or something like that, like we can be factual and say, actually, there is a 0.00, like we could look at the p-value and say, actually, we don't really know what goes into a body, and like there is a possibility that the vaccine doesn't actually help.
Right.
It,
So,
like, oh,
like, if I remember correctly, because I joined the tail end of that
yeah,
conversation, it was basically like how you used to describe it. You can say the vaccine is safe, right? Which is the
yeah, but that
truth.
is not a
That is not factually
factual
precise, right?
statement.
Because, right, you
Right,
would
like,
actually say in the majority of documented instances, we can
yeah,
extrapolate that the vaccine is probably like, or something. You
yeah,
would have
and
to
we have determined that
Right.
probabilistic safe to such a degree that we feel secure enough into releasing this into the public. But that is what the scientists are saying. But that is not how we should be persuading it, because people will hear that and go, "Oh, the possibility that I take this is there is a possibility that if
Think
I take this, I
about,
die."
no,
And it's
100%.
like,
Think about how every time, like, I remember very vividly, again, my mother passed away of stage 4 lung cancer. And I remember like hearing her when we were like, deliberating the various treatment options.
mhm,
It is amazing that even in dire straits like that, when your physician says that there's, even if it's like a minute chance, there's a 5% chance this
yeah,
will kill you. You can say, I mean, yeah, they were being factual and being honest, but what she wanted to hear and what ultimately
yeah,
got her to accept, chemotherapy or whatever, is it's safe. But
right,
when he expressed the fact, like, yeah, there's a 5% chance this will kill you excruciatingly,
for sure,
it doesn't matter in the moment
for
that,
sure,
it's only 5%,
for
right? Because
sure,
there is part of, I think, general human nature where it might not seem like much to again, a zeros and ones absurdly literalist person,
sure,
but I think to most people there is a difference between, hey, this thing is safe, and there's a 5% chance it'll kill you.
For sure. For sure. We perceive that differently, even though we shouldn't.
100%.
Like, even though we shouldn't. And that's the big thing about like acknowledging human nature, is that we should not be treating these differently. We should be looking at those numbers and going, oh, gotcha. There's like, and there have been so many studies that hit the p-value of 0.05. I don't know what the p-value of all of those studies were, but like if we compile those all together, there is a probably 1 in 100,000 that this is just a coincidence that the vaccine entered our body and we were able to shrug off the vaccine. That is a possibility that exists in the minute digits, but we should look at the overwhelming case of data and go, oh, no, okay, I can't live my life like this, right? But we don't for some reason. So we need to operate in the factual, truthful state. Like, and that's something that like, that is something like,
but there are gonna be people who hear what you just say.
Yes, exactly.
Like, yeah.
Oh, so you're lying to people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, what the, it's so
maybe honestly, have you thought about, especially with how digestible you've made, especially this video again, and yet was really good. But I also think as good as it was also in certain ways, even higher brow philosophic masturbation, which
100%,
like,
of course.
There is a practicality to this video that I think translates. Have you thought about maybe doing a video in this style about the relationship between truth and fact? I think that'd be interesting.
I think that's a really good conversation. That's a great. I keep getting so many different ideas for good topics.
I know, and I also want to get you on YouTube instead of TikTok.
I just released something.
I understand. Now get to work on the other one. Damn it. So
I'm trying to pick a topic for my next video right now.
So I think that should be, because that's foundational. I think you should. I think especially when you consider the current political landscape, not just COVID and vaccines, and the increased rate, this disturbing rate of increased vaccine skepticism. Like, I don't know. It's not just about COVID vaccines anymore, buddy. I mean, I read somewhere, I haven't done more digging into it, that we're starting to see like outbreaks in certain like pockets of the country of illnesses that had basically been eradicated, but because people were starting to move away from vaccines, are starting to pop up again. I think it was measles or something like, I can't remember. But I think that I'm commanding you. That is going to be the next topic for your video.
That sounds like a great. I do love that. I do love that topic. My one of my best friends once said, education is teaching smaller and smaller lies. And I do love that. I love that. Like, I think that's so true. When you teach physics or something, like, how mind-boggling would it be, like, or whenever you teach like 1 + 1 = 2, you'd be like, actually, this is only true in the Euclidean sense. And like, as soon as we start using like axioms that don't include the parallel line structure, 1 + 1 might not equal 2. And actually, like, you can map things on this. Or like, when it comes to physics, like whenever we teach like the solar system model, it's like, actually, electrons don't orbit the atoms. They actually exist in probabilistic clouds. And even that, I know I'm not well educated on that. And that might also be like a little bit of like, and even closer to the truth, but not exactly how it exists. And it's like, it's this constant, like, I just want to get this into your head so that you can frame it in a way. And then once we get that framework, we can start investigating what is actually down here.
Yeah.
And it's,
No, I think it's fascinating. Now, we don't have time to play the rest of it, but folks, you guys should definitely check this thing out. Again, it's called "Is a Hot Dog a Sandwich a Response to What is a Woman?" And we're trying to use positive reinforcement for Stax, who again is kind of a TikTok hussy, so to speak, like just all about TikTok.
He's so jealous. I have so many more followers and views.
He's got. I listen only because I'm no longer on TikTok. Otherwise, I'd be lapping you like none other. Probably not.
I've always been ahead of him.
Yeah, no, not always. You liar. When you first reached out to me, I was actually ahead of you. Okay. When you first like blew up my DMs, you were like, "Hey, Ruminate, you're so good looking and brilliant and insightful." And
I said Rum 1 and 8 for sure.
No, you didn't. I remember this vividly because you wrote this entire like love letter and appended like penis pictures at the end of it. But anyway, but definitely go to Staxiom's YouTube channel. Is a hot dog a sandwich a response to what is a woman? And because again, he summarized at the very end. He ties it all together. Sure. It's not just a discussion of language and foodstuffs. It really is a refutation of
this bit right here that like first half that we watched, that was about language, and the second half is about like, oh, how does this relate to the gender categories of the gender categories.
It's really, really good. So you definitely should check it out. Before we move on to the last topic that I want to talk about, Lisa says, my ex is doing liquid radiation treatments for his 4th stage prostate cancer. He can't be around anyone for 5 days, at least the kids under 18, 3 days for adults. I'm sorry to hear that, Lisa. You definitely have my sympathies with that. It's really hard to watch when a loved one and someone who's part of the family goes through stuff like that. I'll tell you, again, as a sidebar, whatever reservation that I had about healthcare being a human right, as Bernie Sanders would say, went out the window the second that my mother got lung cancer. Like, yeah, there should not be for a single second a stray thought of how am I going to pay for this. The fact that in the richest country in the history of civilization, any victim, even for a second, I think it is an act of unnecessary and profound cruelty, because it was more than just a second. There were several instances where my mother was like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? Like, this particular thing, insurance isn't going to cover all of it, or blah, 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 blah. That should not have been that literally should have never crossed out all the other things she had to deal with. That should never have crossed her mind. So like, if it takes taxing billionaires out of existence to make sure that no person has to have that thought, all for it, gladly. Would love with a money vacuum sucking up all your billions, happy to do it, spitefully doing it. Yeah. So and by the way, anyone who disagrees with that's just wrong. Yeah. So that was Stax's video. So now I want to turn for the last like 15 minutes or so to a topic which is pretty near and dear to me, because I think it's definitely super interesting. By the way, can you hear an echo here?
I'm trying. Yeah, I can hear. There's no echo.
There's no echo. Okay. So basically the situation is this, folks. I think that we've got a bit of a constitutional crisis or a potential one from 2 of the 3 branches. So we'll unpack the first one here. So this is a piece of reporting from Jonathan Swan, who used to be with Axios. And actually, this began when he was still at Axios, I believe. He's been chronicling this for a few years about what Donald Trump's plans are if he wins the 2024 election. And this is nothing new. So as a bit of a sidebar, Donald Trump. Okay, well, let me back it up further. Actually, no, let me start with Trump. Okay, so during Trump's presidency, obviously, he had fascistic impulses, authoritarian impulses, pretty obviously, even when he was campaigning. Now, to some extent, those impulses were checked by institutionalists in his administration,
which he railed against constantly.
Yes, constantly. And as the presidency of Trump continued, the more he railed against them. So, like, for example, around the time of the election, at the time that Bill Barr, the Attorney General, his second formal Attorney General, his third acting, resigned. Yeah. He wanted to install a guy named not Dick Clark, Jeffrey Clark, to the position of acting Attorney General. Jeffrey Clark was the guy who told Trump that the Vice President, Mike Pence, can just unilaterally reject the outcome of the election. Right. And Donald Trump wanted to make him acting Attorney General right after the election, before Biden's win was certified and Biden's inauguration. So in that like 4 or 5 month period, or 3 month period, I think it was, he wanted to make Jeffrey Clark the acting Attorney General, so Jeffrey Clark could execute a scheme to seize voting machines and potentially even declare martial law. The only reason he didn't do that is because when Department of Justice officials found out that that's what he wanted to do, they threatened mass resignations to basically just the entire leadership of the Department of Justice was like, we're out if you do this. So Trump relented at the last moment. That's just one of many, many, many examples. My point is this. He's an idiot, he's corrupt, and he's fascistic. And when he's desperate, when you add all of those things and add desperate on top of it, he was willing to go to absurd lengths. So that brings us to 2024. He's made it very clear that if he wins the presidency in 2024, he wants to expand executive power. It's even on his website, okay? But the reporting goes into more vivid detail. So Donald Trump, for example, wants to make every federal employee at will. You might think, well, aren't they all already? No, they are not. There are employee protections where the president or your authorities can only fire you for cause. Now, some are at-will employees, like cabinet officials. Donald Trump, if he wants to fire if he's a president and wants to fire the Secretary of Defense, he can do it tomorrow. He doesn't need, that's just pure, you serve at the pleasure of the president. But if you're like some random accountant at the FBI, or if you're Dr. Fauci or something like that, the president needs cause to fire you. He wants to make every federal employee fireable at will. That's dangerous. He's also promised on his website that he will scour the intelligence community, so the CIA, the NSA, is it NSA? Yeah, National Security Agency. Yeah, the NSA, the FBI. He plans to scour them. And he's framing this as returning power to the people, but how he intends to do this is by accruing executive power. He also wants to bring so-called independent agencies like the Federal Communications Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, and even potentially the Federal Reserve, folks, the ones that dictate monetary policy in the United States. He wants to bring that under presidential control. It's incredibly dangerous. So like right now, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, again, who decides interest rates, he reports to the president, but he can't be fired right now unless for cause. He can be fired by the president. Joe Biden could fire him, but Joe Biden would have to have cause to do it. Donald Trump wants to make the chairman of the Fed an at-will employee. So think about that during an economic crisis or whatever, political crisis. You have a political appointee running monetary policy. What if you think about, so if you take Biden, for example, Jerome Powell is hiking interest rates, or was. That's not good for Biden politically.
For sure.
So imagine if, but it might be good. You can make the case, and many economists do, that it is good for the economy. So what if you have a president who isn't thinking about economic policy, he's thinking about his own
popular policy,
short-term political.
And that's the big thing whenever it comes to economics, is that usually you don't see the ramifications until much later. Correct. So like if you do it around election season, right? Like maybe like a year before or something, you really just like, you cut interest rates. People are going to be on your side.
Sure.
And then if you lose, you got to blame the other person.
It's great. That's a great example. Yeah. That we're talking about just what if he wins? What if during election season or when it's politically convenient, he does a thing? And not even Trump, because if Trump were to set that, what if like a first-term DeSantis president? Because you could say, well, Trump would be somewhat limited because he's constitutionally locked into a second term if he does win. So it's not like he has to worry about the next election. Okay, fine, fair enough. What if it's another Republican president? Because as I'm going to get into, this is not something that just started under Trump.
Right.
What if during you're an incumbent president, you're running for a second term, and you're right, it's election season, and it'd be really good for you politically if you can say, hey, I made interest rates like 0.0003% or whatever, just some arbitrarily low number. If the chairman of the Fed is a political appointee, you'll eventually find someone who's willing to do it, right?
For sure, yeah.
And then also imagine, then you lose. Okay, well, what if you just want to salt the earth and like, you know what, hike up the interest because screw these people. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
there's no telling. Like the consequences would be disastrous.
For sure.
So the thing is, the genesis of this. So again, we're talking about making every federal employee fireable, bringing in all independent agencies under White House control, and scouring the administrative state and all these intelligence community agencies. Those are basically the three major prongs of Trump's push to accrue executive power if he wins in 2024. So the basis for this is this idea called unitary executive theory. And basically what that means is Article 2 of the Constitution says the executive power shall be vested with a president. And basically, we're talking about, like, again, zeros and ones. Literalists will say what that means is literally all executive power, not 99% of it, 100% belongs to the president and the president alone. Literally, the president is a branch unto himself, according to people who believe this. Now, most people agree Pretty much everybody agrees. Okay, listen, in the executive branch, the president obviously should be the top and the ultimate authority, but that doesn't mean he should be able to be a dictator that Congress can't interfere with. Because remember, we believe in notions of checks and balances. So people who believe in a strong unitary executive, they're like, Congress can't protect employees from the president. Congress can't create independent agencies which function outside of the president's absolute control. There's no checks and balances, basically.
For sure.
Now, that's insane. It's insane to think that the founding father, you think about it, right? It actually, I would argue, is defied by the Constitution because so many presidential employees constitutionally can only get their jobs with Senate approval, right? So clearly, there's supposed to be an incestuous relationship.
Yeah, correct.
Here, right?
Yeah.
But Bill
Interesting
Barr,
phrase,
well, but Bill Barr is a good example of someone who believes in a strongly unitary executive theory.
Right.
He believed this under Trump. He believed it under he was Attorney General under George H.W. Bush. He believed it then. This is actually a theory as we know it today that really began under Reagan. That's why Reagan tried to accrue so much executive power. So this is not just unique to Trump. Trump would just be uniquely stupid and dangerous about it.
Sure.
The implications are truly terrifying.
Yeah.
So before I jump, because there's also a Supreme Court component. We're talking about just
for
one
sure.
thing.
Yeah, because are you talking about Alito's statement?
Yeah. Was there anything you wanted to say about the Trump thing?
Not necessarily. It doesn't bode well that he's already he's doing so well right now when it comes to like Republican. He's a front runner by like, I want to say 30 points.
Yeah.
Like
double digits. He has a double-digit lead.
I haven't checked.
Ramaswamy is catching up to, and actually in some polls, he's beating DeSantis.
Yeah. It's not Chris Christie?
I wish. Yeah.
No.
But
you wish? Who would you prefer?
I would no, that's what I'm saying. I would rather have Chris Christie than any other Republican. Maybe Asa Hutchinson, and that again, that's not saying
I don't
much.
even know
I just
who that
don't think.
That's how far below they are.
Asa Hutchinson's wife doesn't know who Asa Hutchinson is.
Asa Hutchinson?
Yeah, he's like the former governor of Arkansas, I think, or the current governor of Arkansas, something like that.
Running for president right now?
Yeah.
I like just hitting 1%.
Right. So it is scary because here's the other thing too. You think, okay, well, even if he wins the Republican primary, there's no way he could win the general. It's not true. Even in 2020, with all the headwinds that President Biden had, like, again, generally speaking, when you expand voter turnout, generally speaking, it's correlated
it's going to be
with Democratic
Democrats.
victories. Yeah. That's part of the reason why Republicans don't want maximum voter turnout.
For sure.
But it's not set in stone because, as a matter of fact, number one, Donald Trump got 7 million more votes, I think 7 million more in 2022 or 2020 than he did in 2016. So people after 4 years of Trump, and this was during COVID, now all the ensuing 7 million more people are like, yeah, I like this guy. Number one, that's terrifying.
Sure.
Number two, the margin by which Trump lost. Yeah, he lost by some 7 million popular votes. But remember, that's not how the presidency is taken.
For sure. There's electoral.
Yeah, the electoral college is ultimately what matters.
How much
that margin was 40,000 votes. If 40,000 votes in strategic states had flipped a different way, Donald Trump would have been elected to a second term.
Now, we don't have to be that. Look, and here's what it comes down to again. We should be a little cautious with our pessimism here. There is an incredibly huge incumbent advantage that Biden has. Okay. We should also acknowledge the overwhelmingly positive. Democrats did really well in the midterms. Okay. Way more than was expected. And it seems like people are generally, the economy is doing great. There's no real true indicators for why Biden.
Here's the problem. But see, that's the thing.
No, I know that it's like the disapproval rating, right?
The disapproval rating in general, but also the disapproval rating on the economy. That's Mehdi Hassan did a great.
It's so weird. I know. You're right.
Matter.
You're right. Like
20% of the American public believes that Biden has handled the economy well. It is a
bias.
I'm telling you,
I don't
Republicans play the game of American
politics.
I
don't know how they do it. It's like a
cheat
magic
codes
trick.
enabled.
It's like a magic trick. It's like I was talking to because Shelby's family very, very, very conservative, and I was like talking to them. I'm like, what is your issue with the economy right now?
Too many people are employed. Inflation's dropping.
They were like, I kid you fucking not. They were sending this article of like
jobs are fine, or like employers are finding it hard to find people to employ, and it's like that is a good thing,
right? Well, to start to actually, so I get to pick on him here, and he may even be listening to this. So shout out to my father if he's listening. But my dad kind of struggled with that one too. I remember about a year and a half ago, when the employment rate was dropping, he was talking about how, there are people who there's so many jobs open, but people are not applying for them.
Yeah,
and I'm like, Dad,
competitive.
Well, exactly. I'm like, well, Dad, like that's also a sign.
Mr. Capitalism lover.
That's also a sign, Father, of the vast disparity between employer and employee.
Yes,
somewhat.
Now it's finally maybe a little bit more equal.
A little bit more. Still not.
Yes, but for sure.
But now But now the situation was such that perhaps
you're gonna have to actually maybe start hiking your wages and start offering things that
because that was the other thing. He was like, people at Wendy's are making, they're offering. I saw a sign $15 an hour to flip. I'm like, Dad, that's the market value now. Now, right?
Mr. Capitalism.
Yeah,
like
your laissez-faire free market is saying shit. In order to fill this job, we got to pay him $15. That's the free market, baby. What's wrong with that? Yeah,
100%.
So, but yeah. As far as your pessimism goes, well.
My pessimism.
You said, I'm sorry, as far as your attack on my pessimism is concerned.
A little bit. I just want to be a little cautious.
I'm not saying that the odds are in Trump's favor. I'm saying he's still competitive. That's the scary thing. Because Trump was the incumbent in 2020 and lost. Biden's the incumbent now. His popularity is, I think right now he's more popular than Trump was, but it's not by much.
Yes, but the popularity of the Democrats and for progressive policies has never been higher. And that's like a weird thing to grapple with. We're like, I don't know what that means for Biden.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So a couple of things. Number one, the margin for error is extremely slim. 40,000 votes in the last election.
Sure.
That's we talk about concerts. That's a Taylor Swift concert, right?
Totally
across this entire country. There are polls, and polls aren't the worst. I mean, I think that we can question them in ways like 2022 was probably a referendum a bit on polls, but there are some polls that have Trump competitive with Biden or even ahead in certain cases, because you got to remember the American consciousness. We have a short-term memory.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's again, I'm like, this guy, all the scandals, all the stuff, and he's still competitive. It's like, again, if I'm a Republican, I wish I could make myself be a Republican.
It's so easy. It's so easy. You just go, no, that didn't happen.
And and half the country is like, oh, okay, yeah. The other half is like, well, wait a minute, I've got this video thing of it happening. Well, yeah, but you said it didn't happen.
It's straight up, like, I feel like they've gaslit our entire country into thinking that they're like 100%. Competent at like economically. Like, they're fiscally conservative. It's like, what world are we living in? It's I don't know. Shout out to Creepo. I'm all for making fun of people's names if they have numbers in it.
I'm a real big Pondering Politics freak, so I totally stand for Pondering Politics.
I stand for Rum 1 and 8.
You stop it. The other thing I want to point out, because we are over time, so I'll just wrap up here. That we just talked about the executive branch. There's also this thing from Justice Alito, one of the 6 regressively conservative Supreme Court justices. So basically, he's taken, and again, I'm going to have to cliff notes this. I want to get into more of the nuance, but long story short, he told the Wall Street Journal he doesn't believe that the Constitution does not empower Congress to regulate the Supreme Court. Okay, what's the context for this? Well, Alito and Clarence Thomas have been credibly accused of corruption by, either being late or just failing to report on financial disclosures for these lavish gifts and perks that they've been getting from right-wing conservative billionaires. And so we've been hearing these reports for some time, and it's not even just a right and left thing there, because there's some questions about liberal Justice Sotomayor's financial involvement with one of her publishers. Nowhere near to the same extent. So it's not a both sides thing. It's
For
as
sure.
usual, the Republicans and conservatives are demonstrably vastly worse. But the left on the court is not above this.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so
I will say
basically,
the egregious examples generally lean. I can think of a few egregious examples, and I don't think any of them are the progressive ones.
You would have to go to Congress of like potential financial, like Nancy Pelosi enriching herself with, stuff like that. But again, you can find for every one Pelosi, you can find like 2 Republicans.
You can find usually, 2 Clarence Thomases, and I think Clarence Thomas, ruling on whether or not his wife should go to jail for trying to do a coup on this country is maybe a little bit worse than possible. What's it called when you
insider trading?
Insider trading.
Well, because trading. Also
not that that's good. Look, I condemn Paul Pelosi, and I think that should be banned from Congress.
Yes, no, it should. And again, that is more of a both sides thing in terms of like insider privilege, exploitation of insider or privilege knowledge in Congress. That's
for
more
sure
of a both sides thing. Still worse on the right, but Clarence Thomas is an issue because he's a lifetime appointee. Like here's the other thing. Well, again, once again, when the Supreme Court comes up, I'm gonna have to cut this short. But we're gonna have to next week. I'm gonna have to talk about this again.
If only we could have done this last week. We could have gotten the video thing out of the way.
Yeah, but I think I had something going on. I can't remember.
You did. It was you. You canceled.
Yeah. But that is dangerous that Justice Thomas or Justice Alito is saying this, because he also says, and I believe this, he's like, I'm not the only one. He's like, the others probably won't say anything, but I'm not the only one. And here's the thing. I would not be surprised if that was almost a unanimous view. I could be wrong, but I imagine even the liberal justices might be like, yeah, I don't want Congress telling me what to do. Like, again, I'm not going to claim that. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That's dangerous, folks.
But I think there's also the factually incorrect thing where Congress can't determine ethics lawfully. Like, it's such a weird, there's a difference between saying I don't want them to and claiming with your judicial authority that is not possible.
Right. So in Section 3 or Article 3 of the Constitution, it explicitly states, now it's about appellate jurisdiction, but it's like basically the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction with regulations and exceptions as dictated by Congress. So even in the Constitution, at least in some respects, like, Congress will set up your appellate jurisdiction and regulate your appellate jurisdiction and set up whatever exceptions may exist. So a lot of constitutional scholars like Alito, what the hell are you talking about? Of course, because here's the other thing. And I was hoping, again, I was supposed to have a conversation. I was trying to have a conversation with a bunch of attorneys and Destiny about this a couple of days ago, but then they ended up ranting for 9 hours about how many stolen candy bars justify a vigilante execution, because of course they would talk about that. Keeping their eyes on the prize. But yeah, so the thing is, we get taught a sanitized version of U.S. history where we talk about the 3 branches being co-equal, but the reality is Congress was supposed to be first among equals.
100%.
Yeah. Now, again, checks and balances exist, but in the brief time I was able to talk about it with Destiny, was like the veto. The president can veto legislation. It's a very powerful tool.
But that veto could also be overturned by Congress.
And can the president overturn
their
overturning of his veto?
If they that is the supreme, I don't know what to call it, but that is the deciding
the supreme
factor.
Check. Yes. Like they're the top hand. It's like, legislation. The president go, no, they get the top hand. They're like, and again, that doesn't mean that the veto is worthless, because the vast majority of the time you don't have, like, I think I can't remember what the statistic is, but like out of 10 vetoes, Congress is usually only able to override like 3 out of every 10. Like the veto that's pretty powerful, right?
Right.
But also impeachments and constitutional amendments and all the things. In theory, clearly the founders intended for Congress to be supreme, even over the court. But so it's so scary to me when it's like, okay, the Supreme Court, lifetime appointments, which, by the way, that's not anywhere in the Constitution. The derivative of that is where it says the justices serve in good behavior, from which people extrapolated, okay, so good behavior for life, right? But if we want to be absolute literalists about this, That's not said anywhere in the Constitution that you get a lifetime appointment. So maybe we should take that shit away from you, Alito. But besides that, it's like, so you're telling me that the founders waged a war to throw off the yoke of an unelected monarch just to create 9 more? Like you get to have a lifetime appointment on this. You get to decide what is and is not constitutional. The executive can't do shit about it. Congress can't do shit about it. And also there's no regulation or checks and balances only work between Congress and the president, not you. You just get to check. You are not the recipient of checks by the other 2 branches. Screw that. Absolutely not. That's why, like, I am so, like, even just hearing Alito say that makes my skin crawl. That it's so disgusting.
For sure.
That's where I want Biden to go, like, you know what? You and what army? Oh, you don't have one. I have the army. That's where I want Biden to channel that Abraham Lincoln. I want that. It just makes me want Congress and the executive to bully the shit out of the Supreme Court. Like, guys, who the you think you are?
It is the only, I will say a tiny bit of a fair point, just a little bit of a devil's advocate. And I know Josiah hates it. Whenever I give the devil's advocate, he gets irked so much. But to be the most fair, I do think that the Supreme Court has almost kind of stepped up to that position because Congress has been so constipated over the last like 20 years, especially with like Mitch McConnell just refusing to do anything. And that fault could lie on them as well, right? Like I'm not, what?
That's my Mitch McConnell.
Oh, I didn't get that. Yeah. It's because you're not talking. I get it.
Well, no, I was just going for we can't cover that, but
you
have a point there.
That's pretty good. I kind of like it.
I know you're just glad it doesn't sound like Kermit, like my Jordan Peterson.
Well, you can't. Yeah, I mean, Kermit's not from Kentucky. So.
No, listen, and this is where
like they had to.
But
step
I do
up
want to talk about this. No, you're right.
Like
you're right.
Well, because Congress didn't rule on that.
Yes, in some ways, yes, 100%. And also, not even just the Supreme Court, but also like they talk about the imperial presidency, how Congress has basically forfeited so much of its authority and its mandate to the president.
So I don't know how to say it other than like so clogged. It like there's
it is. They need preparation H. Like they need some sort of laxative. Or wait, no, preparation H is hemorrhoid cream.
I don't know
that too, but they also need a laxative. They need colon blow.
Let me look up a good laxative. Laxatives.
I think colon blow is one of them. It sounds like very explosive though.
Yeah, just give me.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna read some comments.
X-Lax.
They need. I don't know why I didn't think of X-Lax. Of course, X-Lax.
Miralax is the bigger one, I think.
Yeah.
I've heard of Miralax.
So I want to catch up on some comments here before we go. So actually, before I do that, I'll say we definitely have to revisit this conversation because this is so. I understand to some people it might seem abstract, but this is really, really, really dangerous. As we've discussed, our system is predicated on good faith, and that is in short supply. And so when you have a system where good faith is in short supply, and then you have a potential bad faith actor in the president, the next president potentially, and bad faith actors in the Supreme Court, that is like 2 relatively agile co-equal branches up against one branch who, as Stax pointed out, is constipated. So it's not even like Congress would be outnumbered and also fighting amongst itself too.
What you really want is kind of like how George Washington was like, hey, we're doing 2 terms. All right. That's just what we're going to do. But it's good faith. Just do it. And then you kind of have like this like progressive bully like FDR who's like, oh, it's not a rule. Fuck you guys then. I'm just
100%. Yeah.
And then Congress goes, oh shit, we got to act now. Because otherwise, like we have to start stipulating this shit. We have to say 2 years or 2 terms.
4,
because 8 years. Because I didn't realize that people would just like not respect that. So it sort of like agitates Congress into acting and also gets to take advantage of the rules while we can.
Yeah, President Washington's rolling over in his grave. He's like, I guess I should have wrote it down that when a president loses, they have to leave office peacefully. Like, Donald, I didn't realize I had to write that down, Donald.
For sure.
No, 100%. And it's so scary. So we're going to have to talk about this in the next video or next week.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes over.
Yeah, I know. So just some quick comments here.
Yeah.
Lisa Lopez basically wants to destroy the democracy completely to get back at everyone, thus turning us into a fascist country. Can you imagine the disparity between the rich and the poor then? Agree.
Wait, no, there wouldn't be it would be the poor and the poor. Like unironically, sorry, that's my take on fascism. Very rarely is it. Yeah. Anyway, it's just
the rich would be in the regime. Read Blowback by Miles Taylor, who was the one who wrote the anonymous op-ed while in the Trump administration. He warns against that too. Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about that. Actually, Mehdi Hassan had a good interview with Miles Taylor a couple of days ago.
Mehdi.
I like Mehdi too. They may agree with everything he says right now, but one day he may say something so crazy that they might disagree. Wouldn't they like for that to still be an option?
I don't know if that's about Trump or Alito or maybe a third
Could be
person.
both. Yeah, that's the scary thing about empowering. That's the dangerous thing about forfeiting your political and legal self-defense options to an idiot like Trump, because you should probably expect that eventually he will turn on you or do something which makes you turn on him, and you probably want that option.
It's that classic tweet about leopards eating your face.
Yeah,
you
I didn't realize. The leopards. Yeah, I didn't realize
eating people's faces party would eat my face.
Yeah, how dare they? Face it, Trump won't be happy until he can order mass graves. I would not be surprised. Mark Elias, yes, who's amazing. Won some landmark voting rights lawsuits recently, helping Democrats win more seats over vote. Yeah, Mark Elias is amazing. He does Democracy Docket. Dude, the other thing we got to talk about next time, Alabama was ordered by this regressively conservative Supreme Court. Even this Supreme Court was like, Alabama, your voting maps are way too racist. You guys need to redraw this. And Alabama just refused. They were like, the Supreme Court was like, you need 2 black majority districts. So Alabama drew one, which was literally 50.66%. And then another one, which was like 39.33%. And they were then basically like, come at me. So like the Supreme Court is sacrosanct and it should be obeyed until they tell us to be less racist. And then
right. Oh man, I don't know about this one.
Yeah. DOJ can investigate, charge, and prosecute SCOTUS corruption. They may not be able to remove them from the bench, but they can serve from prison. Yeah, I mean, it's true. So Supreme Court justices, like members of Congress, they have some protections. Like there's the in Congress, it's the debate rule, where basically members of Congress, while on the floor of the Senate or in the House, can say some pretty radical stuff, and they can't be arrested for it. But Congress people have been prosecuted in the past by Department of Justice. They don't have like the sort of immunity that the president does. And the same thing for the Supreme Court. Theoretically, a Supreme Court justice could be arrested.
Yeah, has that ever been happened where they've even been?
Not that I'm aware of, but also there's kind of like how Donald Trump could theoretically, according to constitutional scholars, be arrested and still win the presidency and somehow
and then just rule from jail.
Yeah.
It's a little unclear what'll happen.
You want to talk about bad faith? Again, as awful as the founding fathers could be, even they're like, no, we clearly did not intend for that to be an option.
Be in jail.
Yeah, that can't, guys. That can't be a thing.
I had this debate with L, and also it was against Big Papa Fascist and Rob Noor, and they were like, no, of course that could happen. There have been people in the past who ran for president. We didn't have that discussion before. And then they pulled up some random fucking example that didn't even win 1% of the vote. And it's like, we didn't need to have that conversation. There is a distinct chance that Trump could be president again. Not, I would say, if I were a betting man, 5 to 10%. I think it's very. What is you think that's too?
You think it's 5 to 10% likely he becomes president again? I'm going to say like 30%.
Okay. I'm not
10%.
I'm not Nate Silver. Okay, I don't know. Where does Nate Silver put it?
Jesus.
I'm sorry. Maybe like if you want to say I'm naively optimistic.
I'm not sure anyone in government should have a lifetime appointment. Yeah, 100%. The idea lifetime appointments are so dumb. Again,
and weirdly enough, it's going to give them more power as the lifetime expectancy rate.
Yeah,
I think it's called something else.
Yeah, no, like 100%. Like that's what I mean. On paper, we interpreted it that way early on because we intended for the Supreme Court to be apolitical. So like, you don't have to run for office. Most other developed nations, at least I shouldn't say most, as far as I'm aware, most other democratic republics, advanced democratic republics, advanced democracies, there are term limits imposed on their high court judges. So we are an outlier there.
Sure.
Can Congress write laws that govern the Supreme Court? I think most constitutional scholars would say yes. Like, for example, the composition of the Supreme Court is currently set at 9. That's because of federal statute. That's not a constitutional amendment. That's not 10 Commandments. That is, Congress wrote a generic law and passed it, capping them at 9.
Right.
But the Supreme Court says, well, they can't make us adhere to certain ethics. That's insane. If no one is above the law, that applies to SCOTUS too. But SCOTUS says they're the ones who interpret the law. So they can gerrymander the law around them, apparently. I have no idea. It's insane. And then last comment, same absurdity with thinking a president can pardon themselves. Yes, that's another one.
For sure.
That's another one.
Like, obviously, when we gave people the right to pardon,
But it doesn't say it in the Constitution, Stax. It doesn't say with the exception of him or herself. That's why I mean, like, guys.
Can we think, instead of looking so autistically at a draft of paper, can we think a little bit about the health of a free and fair democracy?
So real talk, and again, when we go offline, I'm gonna resurrect the group chat that we had with Jordan, because he's probably not watching now, because he's like most of my friends,
because he doesn't
care
support
about
you.
what I do. Yeah, exactly. Again, the friend that I'm thinking of, I promise you, he would say, as stupid as this is, it doesn't say in the Constitution that you can't pardon yourself.
It doesn't say in the basketball rules that a dog can't play basketball.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. This is where I just have utter disdain for someone. It's like, guys, we're never going to advance in civilization.
I kind of respect Airbud rules, though. There is a little bit of glee that I get out of it, where I'm like, you know what? That's fucking stupid.
I can't believe you're citing Airbud.
That's the vibe here. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, obviously the president can't pardon themselves. It's the same exact thing of like, obviously a dog can't play basketball.
True.
Can't be on a team.
True.
It's like, well, it doesn't say it, so we have to put him in.
Yeah. Well, folks, we ranted about quite a bit. We're going to have to revisit this next week. But hey, guys, seriously, folks, like and subscribe my channel, especially because I'm trying to make this a full-time thing where I can just yell about Republicans full-time.
Yeah, Pondering Pop Culture as well, despite how stupid of a name that is.
I don't even like this guy. I'm telling you, I don't even know what the point is. I just don't get it. Like, I've been nothing but flattering towards his efforts. And here he is. He just sandbags me like this. I just don't get it. But yeah, Pondering Pop Culture too. That channel is going to get more love in terms of like short video essays.
As soon as he figures out what hobbies he wants to do.
I'd like to get back to my hobbies. I'm telling you.
You spent 2 hours talking to me for some reason. It's a little unclear why.
This is why I'm so cynical. Like, it's hard to be inundated in politics now. You who just traffics in nonsense culture war stuff, like you can just like dip in and out, whatever. Like, oh, you know, but like those of us who actually talk about the stuff that matters,
right?
I mean, it's just like, we got a fascist trying to like become a tyrant in 2024. We've got a rogue court. Like, you guys, we can just do whatever we want, like the founders intended, even though we can't find any proof. It's just so. It's so scary.
Look, let's just let Trump win so that we don't have to do this every 4 years. Because he's gonna do this for every goddamn election until he dies. We're talking about, you know, being against lifetime appointments. This guy is going to be a lifetime appointment of running for goddamn president. You know, if he loses, it's going to be the next 4 years until he dies.
I'm not entirely convinced he will. I think that kind of like, no, I mean die. I mean, I think that I think he and McConnell, like, I think hate can carry you so far. I do.
Yeah.
I think of some of the greatest villains of fantasy, again, you know, Sauron and Voldemort and Palpatine, and it's just like their contempt, their hatred, and their narcissism just can sustain them. You know, I do want to see a rise of Skywalker,
who's like 100 years old.
Henry Kissinger is
How old is
100
he?
years old.
Is he 100?
100 years old.
Okay.
100
I thought he was like
old.
in the 90s. He's literally 100.
He is literally 100.
Jesus Christ.
And you know he's upset that he's like,
he just turned 100 too.
That's what I'm saying.
Like 3 months ago.
And that's in human years. There's no telling how old he is in demon years, you know? He probably celebrated his like third millennium, you know, in the pits of Tartarus or whatever, you know. Anyway, here we are, almost 25 minutes over schedule. So listen, I know that you've got a life to get back to. I'm gonna apparently, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I don't know.
I'm probably gonna go outside and just like try to feel the sun on my face.
Around.
Yeah,
You're like,
and
they
try not
said
to look
feel grass, they
miserable.
said touch grass, and you're just like doing.
The problem is I'm so full of misery and contempt and cynicism that if I do reach out and touch grass, it just like rots. Like, you know, like the grass just like dies.
It's a cool snow angel though, where like you go like this, right? And then all the grass just dies, and then you get up, and it's kind of like the snow angel, but like instead it's the grass that has died near your presence that felt the, you know, vitriol and pessimism that you're constantly exuding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said. I mean, I feel like that's a great place to end it. Guys,
you can't see the sun. They just refuse photosynthesis and wither.
I know. Wither and die. Listen, it's been great. And on that happy note, we're going to cut the stream, but please like and subscribe my channel, Stax's channel. Go watch his video.
Yeah, go look up Staxioms on YouTube. Go watch my other videos too if you really like
just
the
that
first
one. You don't need to watch the other one, just that one. He's going to be working on another one.
I've been thinking about that. Once you said that, I was like, that is probably the most interesting topic.
It is.
That I could think of.
I would like to be first and foremost in the credits. When you
I'll give you a review. I don't think you've edited any of my videos, and I feel
wait a minute. You sent me rough drafts of your videos before and asked me like, hey, what do you think? And I've given you my recommendations. What is that if
Which
not
one?
an edit? And yeah, I think.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, and I
Did I
didn't
give
get
you
listed.
credit?
No, you did not. Guarantee you did
I'm
not.
sorry.
I could have ghost written the thing and still would not have gotten credit.
I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Never crossed my mind. Guarantee you forgot my name.
That is
we're going to publish that.
So. I will add you in the description, which I can definitely edit.
No,
I don't.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Listen, we got to go here. Okay. But,
we do have to go. I will actually add you to the credits in that though. I'm gonna do that right now. As soon as we get off.
I'd like to be put ahead of you, as a matter of fact.
I don't know what else is in there. What is in the description? I don't even know.
I have no idea. All right, guys.
Oh, it just says script editing and music by me.
Exactly. Hey, one-man show right here. Okay, cool.
You really edited this? I don't remember that.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. This is what I'm talking about. And can you imagine being in a band with this guy? Can you imagine?
Yeah, he's just like always solo.
You would have lead singer disease, or lead singer syndrome, like nothing else.
Oh my gosh, I feel so bad
It would be Staxioms and friends, and actually, then over time, it would be Staxioms and acquaintances. Then it would be the Staxioms project, the Staxioms experiment, experience.
God.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it'd be awful. No, it's okay. It's cool.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I love you.